Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to have great relationships around them, and they've got a great circle of friends? It's like they just seem to attract great people and build healthy relationship circles around them. And other people, it just seems the exact opposite. Every time you see them, they like drama, like the latest story of the stuff that went down. They had this confrontation, and they just seem to be surrounded by drama, relational drama. They seem to attract it. And the question is, what's going on there? I mean, what's the difference? And is there something to explain how one person arrives at great relational space and how one person arrives at drama? And that's really what we're going to try and answer today. And the reality is that there's two opposing forces that are fighting to be the central currency of your relationships. The one is fear, and the other is love. And these two, fear and love, they can't actually coexist. They're fighting, and one will always win. So in the blue corner, let's introduce fear. Okay, weighing in at a ghastly 56 kilograms, he represents the kingdom of darkness. His daddy is the devil, and his weapons of warfare are control, punishment, and distance. And he may be light, but he fights dirty. In the red corner is love, and he weighs in at a muscular, pretty imposing 120 kilos. He represents the kingdom of light. He's from God, and in him there is absolutely no darkness. And these two forces are fighting for your heart to be the currency of your relationships. And so often we think of these things, fear and love, as simple emotions. There's the emotion of fear. I feel fear. There's the emotion of love. I feel love. But 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says this: "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." So there's not just an emotion of fear, there's a spirit of fear. There's not just an emotion of love, there's a spirit of love. And this spiritual reality is where the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness, God's kingdom and the enemy's kingdom, are fighting. And the place they're fighting for is your heart and your mind, for your soul. Why? Why are they fighting for your heart? Because whichever spirit you partner with, whichever spirit you choose to make your partner and your friend for life, that spirit will create a relational atmosphere around you. And over time, that relational atmosphere will create a relational landscape, a relational reality in which other people live. And the people close to you will have to live in the relational landscape that's been created around your life. Now, you might say, that is ridiculous. Who would ever choose to partner with fear rather than love? Obviously, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Why would I ever want fear? Well, let's introduce another protagonist no one ever expects in life. The protagonist, the character of pain. Now, pain's a powerful teacher. If you think of a baby, they experience pain like everyone, and the pain is discomfort. They feel hungry, they feel thirsty, they feel tired. They've got poo nappy, which I can imagine isn't the greatest thing, to be sitting in your own poo for long periods of time. And so they've got some pain going on, and they've learned, man, if I cry, someone will come and take care of that pain. Now, as we grow up, we actually learn to avoid pain for ourselves. So you only have to touch a hot plate once to realize that's not a good idea. You only got to put your finger in the socket in the wall once to realize that's not a good idea. Twice, maybe, if you're a slow learner like me. You only have to point and laugh at the bully once to realize that's really not a great idea. And you only have to fall in love and get dumped once to realize that, man, on the flip side of love is the potential for great pain. Now, last week, Roscoe spoke about a snake in your house. And if you think right now, in the middle of your lounge, there's a cobra. Wherever you're watching this video with a group of people, there's a cobra in the middle of your lounge. And there's a distinct possibility that this cobra can inflict some severe pain. Okay, I don't know anyone really that's been bitten by a snake. But I don't have to have spoken to someone personally to realize, man, if that thing bites me, it's going to be unpleasant. And so there's one of three reactions when we're faced with pain. Reaction number one, fight. And so that snake, you're like, man, where is the spade? Where is like a long pointy stick? Whatever, throw something at it. I'm going to use a fight response to create distance between myself and that snake. The second is flight. You're like, chair through the window, dive out, every man for himself. You leave your wife behind you, whatever. You're just out of there, okay? You want to create space. And the third response is to freeze. And you just like jam up and you're like, if I just stay stiller than the next person, maybe they'll get bit. It's how do I avoid pain? And those are the three choices: fight, flight, or freeze. And all of them are used to control a situation and to create distance. And the reality is our relational reality, our relational environment is far trickier than a snake in a living room. The same mom that cares and feeds for you might actually end up screaming at you. The same dad that teaches you how to fish or ride a bike may never tell you that he loves you. The same boss that can believe in you, see the best in you, create opportunities for you, reward you, can actually shout at you, ignore you, and make your life hell. The same group of friends that, you're together and you have fun and there's a natural vibe, suddenly you find yourself going through a tough time and they're strangely absent and you feel that sting of rejection. The same person that looks into your eyes and tells you that they'll love you and be there forever might cheat on you, lie to you, or dump you. And what you realize is that, man, I desperately want friendships. I want great relationships. I want this in my life, but there's the distinct possibility that on the flip side of this coin is real pain. And the reality is every single human relationship is a measure of both, hopefully. Even great relationships, you've got great things happening, needs being met, and on the other side, you've got the potential for real pain, and very often pain itself. And so we're kind of stuck here. We want these relationships, but they can also hurt us. And the other reality is the closer we are to people, the more they can hurt us. And in that moment when pain or the threat of pain is there, we choose who we're going to partner with. We choose, am I going to partner with the spirit of fear, or am I going to partner with the spirit of love? And if we partner with the spirit of fear, we either allow ourselves to be controlled or we try and control others. And let me just explain that a little bit, okay? We end up trying to control the situation. When you partner with the spirit of fear, you end up trying to control the situation with those three mechanisms to avoid pain: fight, flight, or freeze. And so when people adopt the fight response, you see sarcasm, you see death stares. Have you ever noticed, like teenage girls, they can give you a death stare where it's like, if my eye could come out and gouge out your eyes, it would. And it's amazing how like a 13-year-old girl has the capacity to like incapacitate me sometimes. It's scary, but there's the way they just look you up and down, There's cutting comments. There's teasing, which is just a form of shaming people. And there's, even physical aggression. I'm going to use my fight response to try and create distance. You're going to try and hurt me. I'm going to be in your face before you can be in mine and end this potential for pain. The second is the flight response. And this is people who just withhold love. They pout. They manipulate. They have threats to end the relationship, or they simply walk away. The third response in the face of pain is the freeze response. And this is just complete apathy, where it's, whatever, man, okay, whatever you want. They're just non-responsive. It feels like you're trying to reach out to them, but there's nothing coming back at you. They've shut down in some way. And all of these are methods of controlling relationships to try and avoid pain. You're trying to create distance to avoid pain. And they're learnt as a result of pain, and the next time we face pain, we employ them. Now, the reality is none of us get to adults or even teenagers in a relationally neutral environment. Every single family has tactics of control that are used, okay? So think of this. A parent might be in public and their kid is completely acting up. Maybe at the shops, they're doing some shopping, their kid's having a bit of a tantrum. And now people are looking at the parent and they're starting to feel embarrassed. Oh, what do they think? Am I a bad mom? And their sense of self-esteem is at play. And all of a sudden, they've got to control this kid in order to make sure that they stop embarrassing. And so they use fight, flight, freeze to control their kid. They shout, "Come on, man, stop it. You're acting like a little girl." Shaming. What happens in the heart of that little boy when his dad says to him, "Stop being a girl," or, "Stop crying, toughen up"? It's a sense of disqualification, and it causes pain in him. And so he realizes quite quickly, children realize, man, if I don't relinquish control to the most powerful person in my life, then I'm going to experience some pain, because that parent's going to use pain to control. Okay? And it seems to work, when parents are big and imposing, and those kids are small, and this seems to work, but in that kid's mind is this thing, hey, one day you'll see. I'm not always going to be this small. One day I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to put on some weight, and then we're going to see how that shaming goes. And they've learned the language of manipulation, control, pouting, sarcasm, aggression, withdrawal, withholding love. They've learned all of these things, and then all of a sudden they become a teenager. And because they've never learned to control themselves, because someone else was always controlling them, all of a sudden they're out of control, and they're using their newfound freedom, their newfound aggression, and fight, flight, freeze responses to control the relationship back, to try and exert a level of control themselves. And so they come out of this process believing two lies. Number one, I can be controlled. And number two, well, if I can be controlled, I can control others. Sometimes I've got to relinquish control to avoid pain, and sometimes I must use control to avoid pain. But I can use control, I can use manipulation as relational strategies to control the situation, avoid pain. And then all of a sudden, one day, that person falls in love, and they're saying things like this, man, I just feel like I fit with you. I feel like I can just be myself. I love you. And then they fall in love, and they're going down this road, and suddenly a potentially painful situation emerges, where a difference of opinion emerges over an issue we both care about how we spend our money, about where we should live, about what church we go to, about how we're going to spend our time, over sex, over any of the issues that exist in relationships, about how to raise kids. And we realize that this potential disagreement is actually a potential for pain. And suddenly we employ all those tactics that we used, that we learned from our childhood. We employ them again to use them to try and control that situation. Fight, flight, freeze. And suddenly our anxiety levels are getting jacked up. And we find ourselves pouting and shouting and slamming doors and withdrawing and saying, sure, babe, whatever you want, you decide. And these are the tools of powerlessness. And pain and the fear of pain causes people to believe a lie. I have to surrender control in order to avoid pain, or I have to control others in order to avoid pain. And the truth is that we actually have to get to the point where we repent of this lie, otherwise we're going to keep living it out. And here's the reality, and here's what God has to say about the issue of control. You weren't created to be controlled. You weren't created to control others. You were created for freedom. I mean, think of God. He's the most powerful person in the universe, and He absolutely does not control us. He gives us a freedom of choice. He never forces anyone into a relationship, and when they're in a relationship, He never tries to control anyone. And these are, if you think of the Garden of Eden, He puts a choice in the middle of the garden. He puts the trees, and they had a choice what they did with them. And here's the reality is when we hurt God by choosing to rebel against Him, by choosing disobedience rather than obedience, by choosing to live apart from Him rather than with Him, rather than creating distance from us, He aggressively pursues us in love. He comes after us. He sends His Son. He pays the ultimate price. Why? In love, He reaches out to us and He keeps pursuing connection, not distance. He doesn't have a fight response. I mean, He could have wiped us out. Wow. He doesn't scare us into compliance. There's no flight response. He doesn't withdraw. I told you, you chose it. You're on your own now. There's no freezing. I mean, He could have just gone, okay, I'm just going to go make another world and start again. He doesn't do any of these options. The only option He has is to keep loving. Why? Because God is love, and He never employs the relational tactic of fear, of control, to try and solve this problem. He keeps pursuing us in love, hoping that we receive His love. His perfect love is absolutely fearless. And control is the language of fear, and freedom is the language of love, and we were made for freedom. Which means this: no one can control you. You choose to be controlled. And you cannot control anyone. It's simply a relational deception that you can actually control people. And that is why fear and love cannot exist. Love is the language of powerful people, and fear is the language of powerless people. And if you want to walk out of this dynamic, if you're sitting there going, man, I see aspects of that in my life, if you want to walk into this, out of that dynamic and into that environment that we spoke at the beginning, where you've got great relational landscape around you, where you attract great people, you have great friendships, you've got to make two commitments. Number one, I must choose self-control. It's amazing the Bible never talks about other control, only ever self-control. I must choose self-control, and I cannot control others. On a good day, I can control myself. I can't control other people. And the second commitment you must make is that my number one goal in relationships is to make building and protecting connection my priority. So even in the face of pain, I'll consistently choose to build and protect connection rather than create distance. And to do that, we must choose love. I want to read a text from 1 John 4:16 to 18. It says this: God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And as we live in God, our love grows more perfect. So we will not be afraid on the day of judgment, but we can face him with confidence because we live like Jesus here in this world. Such love has no fear, because perfect love expels all fear. If we are afraid, it is for fear of punishment, and this shows that we have not fully experienced his perfect love. The amazing thing about this is that God is love, and when we invite God into our lives, we're inviting a powerful love force into our life, and we learn how to love, and he perfects us in love, and there's a maturing process in there. And I don't know about you, but I'm so relieved that God partners with me. God partners with me to try and coach me, to develop me in love, and to perfect me in love. And that's a massive relief, because I don't know if I can get there on my own, but with his help, I can. I want to leave you with this closing thought, and this is really the statement that powerful people make. They say this: I'm going to be okay no matter what you do. You can hurt me, but you cannot make me turn my love off. I am relentlessly going to do what I have to do to protect my connection with you, no matter what.